Welcome to episode 11 of today's Candor. I'm your host, Barika. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to tune in. Please forgive me in advance. I'm a little nasally. I think my allergies are trying me. So forgive me if there is a sniffle here or there and clearing my throat a little bit. But let's go ahead and dive right into this episode. I want to talk about just the step that one step, or those preliminary steps that we are afraid to take. That's what holds us back. And this is something I had to learn. For those of you who have listened to my previous episodes, I always say I'm never going to speak on something that, one, I haven't been through and, may not have any experience with necessarily, or just something where I'm trying to give advice and I haven't had to take my own advice. So that first step, or those preliminary steps that you need to take in order to start your business, go back to school, whatever accomplishments, maybe something short-term or long-term that you have on your list of goals, or if you have a vision board, that first step or those initial steps, if you're afraid to take those, you'll never accomplish the goal. And what I always say to people is, the time is going to go by anyway. So if you have a goal that is set out and you want to accomplish it in a year, whether you choose to start or not, those 365 days are going to go by. Time waits for no one. It doesn't discriminate. It's going to continue to go and go and go. And if you wait and say, well, I'm scared to do this, I'm scared to take that first step, sometimes it's a matter of you might need a certain amount of money in order to pay for something. And please, I beg people, do not take something like your rent money or your mortgage money, something that's very important, and dish that out and take a risk. At least I know that's something I'm not doing. But if it's just the step of actually starting to do the research on what you need for that particular field that you want to start a business in, and if you are just trying to do the research to see what's the best way to go about it, what's currently trending, do you need an actual business plan right off the bat? If it's something where you're doing more of like a digital creator type of situation and you're researching that, and maybe your favorite YouTubers or just whoever you keep up with, start by doing your research, do some reading, let those creative juices start to flow, jot them down. And when you start, those are those preliminary steps. No one said that the preliminary steps have to be something grand and out of this world. That first step might be you start to think about what you want to name your business. And you might start writing down different ideas, things that sound good to you. And of course, say it out loud so that you can just see how it sounds when you're pitching it to people. And you're starting to figure out your marketing strategies, things of that nature. But if you never start there, if you never start with the things that cost absolutely no money, you just literally taking the time to sit down and either put it on a notepad, a piece of paper, the notepad that comes on our devices, that takes no money. But let your creative juices start flowing, because that's what's going to help you. And you'll say, this feels really good. This feels very liberating for me to start working on something that I love and I'm passionate about. Because the time is going to tick and tick and tick. And you'll look up, that year will be gone. And you'll say, why didn't I start this already? Why didn't I even start, figuring out what I want to name the business? What kind of business do I want it to be? Let me research what's trending. Let me maybe, talk to a few people. Like if you already know people in that business that you want to start for yourself. So those are the things that sometimes that costs no money. So just get it started. And when we overthink and when we're trying to figure out, well, no, if I start it right now, there is no perfect timing. But just the small things of you jotting down your ideas, that is, not only is it just the initial step that allows you to continue the thought process, It's that initial step that just pushes you forward past most people who have the ideas, but they don't even want to take the time to do it. They're saying, well, it's going to take this amount of years for me to actually see some gratification from it. Okay, but that time's going to go by anyway. And maybe in those, let's say it takes you a few years to actually get your business up and running. You could have already monetized it, or you could have already built up your clientele. And of course, with social media and by word of mouth, you don't know where you could be in those few years. But if you never start and you never say, let me create my logo, let me create the name of the business, even just the small steps of downloading the apps that you might need on your tablet. Because you might be saying, well, I don't have necessarily like a computer, so should I even be starting the business? All these devices we have now, they're literally just smaller versions. So the iPhone, these Androids, they are computers. They're phones. Yes, we can make outgoing calls, we can get phone calls, we can text, but how many other things are you doing on your phone every day? So put that app on the phone or put it on your tablet. Because literally, like, I have a wireless keyboard for my iPad. It's going to work just the same as my Mac. So there's no excuse to say, well, if I don't have this particular thing, especially something that you can just substitute it for, if you will. So if you have a tablet, instead of saying, well, I don't have a desktop necessarily or a laptop, use what you have. Use what you have until you get to that next point where you're saying, okay, well, I actually want a laptop or I want a desktop to work off from, and use that for my business. So you can have, like that larger screen in front of you, and it's just helping you maybe streamline some things. It's nothing wrong with saying that's what you want, but don't let that be the reason that's holding you back from saying, I actually want to start the business. Or, like I said, something where somebody might be thinking about going back to school, whether it's because they stopped in the middle of a degree, or they want to pursue something else or a certification, whatever the case may be. But just start it. Start looking for the schools. If you can't go in person, they have online. Of course, for things that are hands-on, yes, you'll have to physically be there, but if you want it bad enough, you'll make it work. And you'll figure out, okay, what do I need to pay for it? But if you never start looking for the schools to see what the amount is, to see what the curriculum offers, to see what kind of payment plans there are, if you never take that step to even say, okay, I know I want to accomplish A, what gets me to point B and then to point C? But you don't have to figure out point C at that very moment. It's not to be all figured out 110%. Start to work towards it. And then your creative juices and the resources you need will follow. You'll start to it'll open up. More, it's just your ideas will just open up. Your brainstorming will open up, and you'll be able to say, okay, you know what? Maybe I need to do this if I want to pay for school. I might have to get a second job. I might have to do this. I might have to cut down some spending if you feel like you're spending too much. So you might have to readjust your budget. But the time's going to go by. The people who say they don't want to do 4 years in school, no one said you have to get a 4-year degree. There's all these different types of certifications, and trade schools sometimes will have you out of school in 9 months, maybe a year, of course, depending on the program you choose and if you do it day or night. But choose to do something. So when people say, I don't have time to pursue a 4-year degree, but if it's something they really want to do, they actually want that 4-year degree, they want that bachelor's, but they're saying, I don't have time for that. Okay. Well, the 4 years is going to go by anyway, and you're still going to be upset that you have not accomplished that thing that you wanted to attain. Time figuring out or saying you don't have the time to do it and you're trying to work and maneuver your money, those are two different things. Because yes, like I said, no one's asking you to risk your life and throw something away or potentially spend like your rent money trying to pay for something. So of course you might want to get that in order. But time, we make time for what's important to us. It doesn't matter if it's a person or something that we want to accomplish. We make time for the people we want to, and we make time for the things that we want to do, whether it's for recreation or if it's something as I've mentioned, starting up a business, going back to school, figuring out just, saying I have this hobby I like to do, but how do I monetize it? If you're doing it already and you're figuring out how to monetize it, maybe that's just a matter of research and just studying and just networking to see what's the best way and best route to go about it. But there's no reason to say, I'm not going to do that. Like you'll just shut down and say, I'm not doing that at all. Time waits for no one. And the reason I said in the beginning that I had to take my own advice is because I felt like I was just sitting on my own gift and sitting on my own dreams, because I wanted to say, like when I went to college, that wasn't even anything I had to wonder or second guess. Right out of high school, I knew I wanted to go to a 4-year university. So that's what I did. That was never something where I had to say, you know what, I really don't know about that. I knew it off the bat. But something like starting my podcast, I said some episodes ago, when I actually launched my podcast back in June, that wasn't the first time I thought about actually starting a podcast, launching it, all those things. Maybe like a year-ish ago, give or take. Yeah, was like the very first time I said, okay, maybe a podcast would be something really good for me. And I thought about it for a few days, but then I didn't start. Those thoughts were just there, but there was no action. There were no plans. There were no like steps listed out. Like, okay, I need to do this, this, and this in order for me to launch it. And so what I did this time, when it popped back in my head, I was like, the thought and the vision didn't come to me just for any reason. It wasn't a coincidence. 1, I've thought about it before. 2, I knew that there was something that I could share on a larger platform and share with people, and that I could help. So I was like, let's start doing this. And I started thinking, I knew what I wanted the podcast to be about. Then I started thinking about, what do I want to name my podcast? So I listed out some different names. I listed out about 10, not all in the same day. I would just add to it as I thought about different things. And I said, I finally picked what I wanted to call it. And I came out with Today's Candor, because I felt like it would be just that dose of honesty. I explained that in my introduction episode, the very first episode. So I had started doing that. In the middle of figuring out what I wanted the name to be, I started researching just what successful podcasters do. Maybe what does their day look like? How did they start off when they first launched it? So that I could know, how do I make my podcast quality? It's not about making it perfect right off the bat, but just making sure that the sound was quality and that I was using a quality hosting site, things of that nature. And then I also wanted to know what to use for my logo, so I used Canva. I love Canva. It has so many options up there and you can customize it just so many different ways. Canva is great. So I just was doing some reading on successful podcasters. What do they do? When should I record and release episodes? Just all these things. And I said, okay, I felt like I had the bulk of it down pat. And I started just putting all of my research together. And I said, now it's time for me to start recording and releasing episodes. And it's been one of my greatest decisions, because I feel like I'm able to reach people who aren't even right near me. I've reached people internationally already who listen to my podcast, and I'm so grateful. And I hope that I am just, whoever is tuning in, that I'm just helping and just able to give a word and just give some wisdom, because you never know who needs it. So I said, stop the overthinking, Barika. Stop wondering, if your podcast is going to be good enough, make it quality, and that's what's going to make it great. Make it a quality podcast that you're producing. And that's one of the reasons why it's going to be great. And then I'll continue my research to just continue tweaking and just improving and whatever I can do to continue to make sure that my podcast is staying and keeping up with the very successful podcasters. So I'm always making sure that I'm doing what I need to do because I want to continue to improve it, continue to tweak it. It's not about it being perfect, just making sure that I'm always delivering quality content and stuff, topics that I think people really want to hear just an unbiased perspective on. And I've gotten some of that feedback, some from people that I know, but also I've gotten some of that feedback from people who don't know me at all, people who may just follow me on Instagram. And my Instagram page, for those of you all who follow me know, but my Instagram page is not a personal page. It is for my podcast. So I'm very grateful for just some of the feedback that I've gotten, those who know me and for those who don't know me on a personal level. Just saying, we think that the topics you speak on are great. Keep delivering that type of content. It's something that's needed. I'm very grateful, very appreciative for that feedback. It lets me know, okay, I'm going in the right direction. So just taking that very first step, me saying, you know what, stop thinking about, do you have everything that you need to record? I said, okay, I got my microphone. I have my tablet, I have my iPad. Let's do this. And I had my creative juices flowing. Those thoughts didn't come to me for just any reason. They didn't come to me just because. So I felt compelled to just get started. I said, and every time someone, especially a stranger, would ask me a question in my opinion about something and they don't even know me, I'm like, I need to start delivering this on a larger platform. So I said, let me take my own advice and take that first step or those initial steps and get started. And I'm so glad I did. So with that being said, I hope whatever you all have in mind, like I said, whether it's a business you want to start up, whether it's just whatever goals you want to accomplish in your own personal world, if it's goals you want to accomplish in your work life, just saying this is something I need to do. And as we all know, a closed mouth does not get fed. So, and always remember, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's your approach. It's your approach. So be able to, if there is something that you're going to ask, and, maybe you're going to somewhere at work and you're trying to figure out how to ask them for a raise, how to negotiate a raise. Maybe it's someone, on an executive team that you need to speak to. But if there is something that you are trying to accomplish, if you never take the first step, whether it's a conversation, whether it's an idea for a business, whether it's starting to research schools, if you're looking to go to school or return to school, if you are trying to relocate, if you're not researching, okay, what does, wherever you might want to relocate to, what do they have to offer you? What's maybe the job market like? If you have children, what do the school system look like? But if you never start, you'll never know. And what if is never a good feeling. All of us has at least once done what would have happened if I did XYZ, and not taking that initial step on something that's very near and dear to your heart, very important to you, not taking that first step will always leave you wondering until you either choose to take that first step. And there are some people who just will never take it. So they'll always sit with that what if. And it may turn into a regret, which we know doesn't matter because we can't change the past. So as always, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for continuing to follow, like, and share. You can find the podcast, of course, on all major platforms. And until next time, stay safe and stay candid.